Well, hello and welcome to my video. Thank you so much for coming. My name's Lyndon, and in this video I want to tell you about an email exchange I had with a gentleman called Kevin, who asked me about, he sent me an email really asking me about tone. Now, I have made and how to get such a lovely sound on the saxophone, and he was really complimentary about the sound that I make on the sax, and that is so lovely to hear. And if you like the sound that I'm making on the sax, then I'm going to be telling you everything. I'm going to be putting everything I've got into this video to share with you how I'm getting that sound and what you can do to improve the sound that you make on the saxophone, which, let's face it, is probably the most important thing, because you can have all the licks and patterns and running up and down and tunes and everything, but if your tone isn't there, then the saxophone isn't going to sound very nice. So you really do need to be able to produce a lovely tone on the sax, and that's what this video is going to be about. I'm going to share everything that I can think of in this video. Now, I have covered some of this stuff before in previous videos, but I've got some new thoughts as well which I'd like to share with you, so stick around and see if some of this is useful for you. Before I dive into that, I want to say thank you for subscribing to my channel. That keeps the channel healthy, it supports the channel, and it helps me stay motivated. Thank you for buying me coffees, thank you for supporting me with PayPal tips and stuff like that. It makes a huge difference. I pay that onto my mortgage, which is still unfeasibly large, but even though I am really old now, so that really does help. And you know, the buying me coffees is great, and subscribing is really useful in sharing my videos. So if you'd like to do that, you can, and if you're doing that already, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So tone, the first thing that I said to Kevin was, you've got to make sure that you're using good equipment. If you're using super basic mouthpiece and reed, then that's not going to help. And what will help is you investing into a really good quality mouthpiece, whether you're playing alto or tenor. Then getting a really good professional mouthpiece is definitely going to make a difference. The mouthpiece that I use is a Mayer 5 on alto, medium chamber. It's a Mayer 5 medium chamber, and I just use a really standard ligature. I don't really find that super expensive ligatures are that useful for me, and I use a Rigotti Gold 2.5 reed on alto. On tenor sax, I'm using an Otto Link Super Tone Master 7 star. And I'm also using 2.5 Rigotti Golds for those, but I think they're medium instead of being 2.5 strong, which I use for the alto. So that's my particular setup, but it doesn't really make much difference. Whatever mouthpiece you've got, the advice, well, it does make a difference if it's like a really low quality mouthpiece. But the advice that was given to me by a man called Joe Hatherill years ago when I first started playing was, get a really good quality mouthpiece, a professional mouthpiece that's really in the middle. It doesn't have a big tip opening or a little tiny tip opening. Get something medium chamber, medium tip opening, and stick with it. That's what he said. Stick with that mouthpiece and don't change the mouthpiece. Now, some people really love buying lots of kit and buying mouthpieces for jazz and mouthpieces for rock and mouthpieces for swing. And if you enjoy doing that, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But me personally, I took the advice of sticking to one mouthpiece and getting really intimate with it, so that I really know. So imagine like you're a racing driver and you're just really used to a car, and you just know how you can throw it around the bends, you know how far you can push it, and you just get super familiar. That's how I feel about my mouthpiece. I'm so familiar with it, it's like an old friend, and it just fits, and I just know it really well, and there's no surprises. So if you enjoy buying loads of mouthpieces, that's absolutely fine, but it's just not the road that I went down. My advice is the advice that I was given: buy a mouthpiece and stick with it. Same with your reeds, right? I would get a really good quality reed and stick with it, really, rather than changing brands and changing strengths all the time. A question that comes up is, what about synthetic reeds? If you're using a synthetic reed and you're happy with it, fantastic. Personally, I like cane reeds because the sound that I make out of a plastic reed doesn't sound as lovely as the sound that I can get with a cane reed. I wish I could get that sound out of a cane reed, because cane reeds are more consistent and they last longer and they work out cheaper, and you don't have to wet them up and so on, and so you don't get a box of 10 and you have to throw 3 or 4 or 6 away. So I would love to be able to make a great sound on a cane reed, but I just don't, the sound doesn't resonate with me, so I use cane reeds. But you have to find your own way, and if you are using if you're using synthetic, then that's absolutely fine. So those are the physical things that you can change and think about. I actually think that the mouthpiece and reed and a good ligature is more important than the saxophone that you're playing. And that's because if I put my mouthpiece on a kind of basic saxophone, I get a very similar sound to how I would get on a much more expensive saxophone like a Selmer. However, if I put a really sort of super basic and really kind of soft reed on my instrument, it doesn't sound anywhere near the kind of sound that I would choose to get. So the mouthpiece and reed is probably more significant than the type of saxophone that you're playing, given that your saxophone is functioning as it should do. So it hasn't got leaks, and that's not why you're squeaking or something, because the saxophone is leaking. So yeah, given that your saxophone is in good order, the mouthpiece, I think, is more important. Of course, if you can afford a beautiful Yanagisawa or a Selmer or something like that, then go and buy it, because you know that's gonna not hurt, it's gonna help. The second thing that I would say in regards to tone is to get your bottom lip out. Experiment with getting your bottom lip out. So if your bottom lip is all the way in when you play, I would suggest that you experiment with getting your lip out like this. And if you listen to the difference, and now I don't know if it's going to make much difference in recording sounds, but it definitely, you can hear the difference in person. This is with my lip in, and this is with my lip out. This is on a G on the alto, with it in, with it out. And I think that you get a fuller, richer sound if you experiment with getting your lip out. You don't have to have it like that all the time. It's not binary. It's not either it's in or it's out. You can move and experiment with different levels of having your lip outness. But I do recommend that you experiment with getting your lip out, and it will positively affect your sound on the saxophone. Point number 3 is an exercise that I really love, which I call dynamics. Now, I lived in an apartment in London for many years with not very friendly neighbours downstairs and not very friendly neighbours upstairs either. That was fun, I can tell you. And so I got into the habit of playing really quietly, and I think this might have been really good training for my sound. And this exercise is called dynamics. You start with the smallest sound that you possibly can, build it up into a big sound, and bring it back down to the smallest sound that you can, and that would sound like this on a G. So could you hear right at the end the note? Again, I hope that's picked it up on the microphone, but the note was just almost there, but only just there. And all of those cracks and pops and whistles, again, I don't know if the mic picked it up, but that's good. Practice playing as quietly as you possibly can. I think this is going to really strengthen your embouchure and really help with developing your sound. And I would set you this bit of homework or a challenge or a project, right? Do that exercise that I've just said. Do it every time you pick up the saxophone for a couple of weeks, and see if that makes a difference on your playing, because I suspect that it will. It will make a difference to the sound that you make. I suspect strongly that it will. It really works. Point number 4 would be to, if you learn things by ear, then you can concentrate on your sound. If your mind, rather than trying to figure out what note you're going to play next, if your mind is really busy and your brain is going, what note am I going to play next? It's D sharp. What even is a D sharp? Is that the same as an E flat, or is it a B? I don't know. Right? If this is what's going on in your mind, it's unlikely that you're going to be able to play a lovely sound, and it's likely that that stress will come out through your playing. So if you're really relaxed, and you're relaxed because you know exactly what it is that you're going to play, then your whole system relaxes and you can deliver a more beautiful sound. So whatever you're playing, if you're trying to play it with a really gorgeous sound, make sure that you've learned it by ear as much as you possibly can. Again, it's not binary. It's not like you can't make a good sound if you're reading something. Of course you can, but it's going to help if you're super familiar with what it is that you're playing, and that is a really good top tip. So memorize whatever it is that you want to play beautifully. Point number 5 is to that I put in this email to Kevin, is to open up your throat. So you know when you're just about to yawn, right, and you open up your throat, and just before you yawn and your throat is kind of being pushed out, experiment with that. Now I did this at a workshop down in Wavendon, which is near where I live in Bedfordshire in the UK, and this I was running this workshop with about 12 people in the class. Tenor player was saying he's really unhappy with his sound, and I suggested to him exactly what I'm sharing with you now, that you should open up your throat, and everybody in the room could hear the difference, and so could he, and they were all blown away. There was like this stunned silence that kind of solved his problem for him, and I want you to try it. So imagine that your throat is really tight, and that you would be speaking, if I had a really tight throat, that I would be speaking like this. If I blow a G and my throat is like that, look. Blow a G, Lyndon, on the sax. Now, if I open up my throat as if I was going to yawn, I'm going to make this sound on that same G. And you get a much fuller, richer sound, which is what we're after. So experiment with opening up your throat. Again, it's not binary. It's not like either your throat is open or not. Just experiment with opening it up, and certainly don't have like a really kind of tight throat going on. It's another top tip. The next thing that I mentioned was learn to play vibrato. So if you listen to any of the recordings that I've done on my YouTube channel of me playing, you're definitely going to hear me playing vibrato, and it's just a lovely bit of glossy. Vibrato is a wave at the end of a long note that adds just this lovely kind of delicious professional sound. It just sounds absolutely beautiful, and the way that you do that is by going wow, 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 wow with your lip. Now it feels like a huge movement, in the same way that, have you ever had a twitch on your bottom eyelid, and it feels like your whole eye, your whole head is like jumping up and down? It's just a twitch in your lower eyelid though, and you go and have a look in the mirror and you can't see any movement. That's how this feels. It feels like you're making a really kind of exaggerated movement with your jaw or lip, and yet there's really nothing to see. And if I do that on a G and I hold a straight note and add a bit of vibrato to the end, and that really sounds gorgeous in recordings. By the way, all of the music that happens at the start and the finish of these videos is me playing. So that's me playing over backing tracks. So you can have a listen and listen out for the vibrato. It does sound absolutely gorgeous, and I strongly recommend that you have a go at doing it. One more thing that you could do are long tones and the harmonic series. The harmonic series, or the overtone series, is when you hold a low C, and just by tightening up your embouchure you can get the C above that, and then the G above that, and the C above that. That would sound like this. So just again, to be dead specific, I'm holding a low C and I'm not moving my fingers. I'm making these changes in sound through my embouchure. and that would be really good for you to have a go at. If you've never tried that before, it's really worth giving it a go. It's a fantastic workout for your chops. And did you hear that one of those notes was kind of broken or cracked just before I hit the top C, I think? It kind of split. That's a good thing, right? If I can get that split and hold it there, then that's my embouchure is just really kind of being very, very controlled in order to do that, and that's a very good thing. So this is really good. The Harmonic Series or the Overtone Series is a good thing to practice along with long tones. Now there's this huge debate around long tones. If you go onto forums on Facebook for saxophone or forums in general, people go on about long tones. I didn't spend ages doing long tones. I just didn't. I spent a lot of time playing really, really quietly, but long tones, not so much. But if it works for you, then that's fantastic. And it certainly doesn't hurt to do some long tones, but I don't think that's the be all and end all of getting a good sound. I really don't. I think you're better off doing dynamics. The last thing that I would say, and as I get older, I'm now 58 years old, but when I was younger I kind of knew this, but as I've got older I think it's really, really significant. When I play the saxophone, I put everything that I've got. I actually feel quite vulnerable when I'm playing at a gig or even doing these videos, and in fact I take the same approach for these videos. When I'm playing the saxophone personally, I don't hold anything back at all. I'm giving it everything that I've got. I'm giving it every ounce of who I am as a human creature. I'm just putting everything, 100% commitment through the saxophone, as I am doing with these videos. I'm trying to give you everything that I've got. And I think that makes a big difference. So there's something about being in a flow state when you're playing. It's like complete surrender or complete like feeling of vulnerability or nakedness, and allowing yourself to go to that space. I know that might sound kind of floaty, and I'm not really that floaty kind of guy, to be honest. I'm a real kind of feet on the ground kind of person, or however you would express that. But in this instance, I really do think that really kind of surrendering and giving everything you've got has got to make a difference to your sound. If your mind is full of clutter, and you're holding back, or you feel a bit embarrassed or whatever, then that's going to affect your sound as well. And the analogy that I would make, it's rather like driving. So when you're driving, have you ever kind of noticed that you drive somewhere and then you arrive at your destination and think, wow, do you know, I don't remember any of that, because you were on autopilot. That's what I'm talking about, getting into a flow state. You're on autopilot when you're driving. That doesn't mean you're not paying attention, because you are. You really are. And if you need to suddenly, get into the moment and make an adjustment for whatever reason, you can totally do that. But you're kind of allowing yourself to be in a flow state. And when I'm playing the saxophone, that's how I feel. And I feel after years and years and years of gigging and teaching and all of this, I'm able to move into that flow state quite easily and back into like a not such a flow state. I can make that transition, and I would encourage you to do it. When you play the saxophone, give it every ounce of yourself, put everything into it. It really does count for something in your sound. I absolutely guarantee it. Try it. Please, please, please let me know what you think. Has this been useful? Please try these exercises for a few days, and if you notice a difference, come back and let me know, because that's super encouraging for making these videos. And I really do hope you found that useful. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and if you'd like to buy me a coffee, you can, and if you have done already, thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.